We're all trying to be happy, but how exactly? Another year slips by, and many of us keep chasing this thing called happiness, as if it were some object lost out there in the world. But what if I told you, true happiness isn't found in what we gain, but in how we respond? It's not that life gets easier, it's that we become stronger within. In today's video, we embark on a journey, not outward, but inward, not to escape reality, but to see ourselves more clearly, not to be rescued, but to learn how to rescue ourselves. 1. Stop doubting yourself, but never deny the truth. Strength begins with awareness. There's an enemy among us, cleverly disguised, that most of us live with every single day. It doesn't scream, revolt, or destroy everything all at once. It does something more insidious. It slowly corrodes our inner confidence, drip by drip. That enemy is self-doubt, that small voice in your head whispering, "You're not good enough. Others are better. Don't bother. You'll fail like always." It doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from within. And that's why we're so quick to believe it. But here's what matters. Stoicism doesn't teach us to deny that voice. It teaches us to face it, calmly and rationally. Most of the time, we don't need to conquer doubt in a single strike. We only need to recognize it, then slowly reclaim control. You don't need to shout, "I'm amazing," every morning, like a hollow mantra. You just need to learn to speak to yourself like a stern but fair friend. Imagine you are training a warrior, not coddling a fragile child with false comfort. When your mind starts to waver, don't run. Sit with it and ask, is there evidence for this thought? Have I overcome something like this before? What exactly am I afraid of? Something real, or just a shadow in my mind? Doubt is not evil. In fact, it can be a mark of awareness. Fools are often the most confident. The wise are the ones who constantly ask if they're enough. But if you let doubt drive the car, it will take you somewhere no one wants to go. Quittersville. One of the most practical ways to resist doubt is to name your past victories. Maybe you've forgotten the time you got back up after a failure that nearly broke you. The time you went to work when your world was falling apart, finished that exam while running on fumes, showed kindness to others even when you were quietly crumbling. Those moments aren't meaningless. They are living proof that you're not as weak as you think. And sometimes, doubt is like a tough coach. It forces you to look closer. It makes you question, adjust, refine. But the danger is this: we often don't know where self-examination ends and self-sabotage begins, where learning from mistakes turns into locking ourselves in the cage of, "I'm not worthy." A Stoic doesn't deny their flaws, but they don't let those flaws define them either. They learn, they adapt, and they move forward with calm that asks for no applause. To avoid drowning in doubt, we need an inner framework, a system to filter and manage our daily thoughts. It doesn't have to be complex. Sometimes the simplest rituals make the deepest impact. Every night before bed, I ask myself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did my thinking go off track? And how will I improve tomorrow? These 3 questions are like a mirror, not to judge, but to reflect. In 5 quiet minutes, I shift from being a silent hostage of my mind to becoming its deliberate trainer. Because the truth is this: you are not weak. You've just been fed too many false beliefs. From your past, from society, from the moments you were hurt. Stoicism doesn't promise to erase all that. It simply teaches you how to move through it with reason, discipline, and awareness. A person who no longer doubts themselves isn't flawless. They've just made self-trust a daily habit, built through action, not illusion. And you can do the same. Don't wait until you feel ready to start. Begin even with the noise still in your head. Your emotions may tell you you're not enough, but action will prove you've always been enough, as long as you choose to believe it every single day. 2. Gratitude without romanticizing life, because sometimes what's most precious is what still remains. We often hear the advice, be grateful to be happier, but in moments of exhaustion, confusion, or loss, that phrase can feel hollow, sometimes even offensive. How can you feel grateful when everything seems to be working against you? How can you feel whole when you feel empty inside? This is why we must distinguish true gratitude from romanticizing life. Gratitude isn't closing your eyes to hardship, nor is it forcing yourself to feel fine when everything is falling apart. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is not blind emotion, but a rational choice. It doesn't deny reality. It chooses to face it through a different lens, one that is deeper, clearer, and more deliberate. We don't have to pretend to be happy, but we can choose to focus on what still remains, even the smallest things, as a way to stay anchored. A warm cup of coffee, a sunlit morning, a message from a long-lost friend. These won't change your life overnight, but when you begin to notice and acknowledge them, you send a signal to your mind, I still have some control over this life. I can still find meaning, even in the mess. Stoicism doesn't ask us to paint over life with false color. It teaches us to accept things as they are, and then go further. It teaches us to look at what's left, what we still hold, and to draw strength from it. Stoics are not relentlessly optimistic. They are clear-eyed. They understand that suffering often doesn't come from the event itself, but from how we interpret it. Gratitude is one of the sharpest tools for correcting that perspective. Gratitude doesn't erase the negative, but it sharpens the positive. When you write down 3 small things each day that made you feel fortunate, a well-timed umbrella, a warm meal, the fact that you kept your cool in a tough moment, you're refining your promise to notice sufficiency over scarcity. This isn't emotional fluff for dreamers. It's mental discipline, a way to reclaim agency in a world that never stops spinning. Interestingly, the more we practice gratitude, the more we realize how much we once undervalued the ability to walk, to eat normally, to have someone who listens, to have a place to return to. These are all gifts we once treated as background noise. Gratitude doesn't require wealth, success, or a life that goes according to plan. It only asks that you pause long enough to see what hasn't yet been lost. And it's in that pause, that moment of clarity, that we find the gateway of inner steadiness. It's not easy to sustain gratitude in a world obsessed with comparison and expectation. Social media shows us everything we lack, everyone we have yet is beside. But Stoicism doesn't ask, why don't you have that? It asks, what do you already have? And are you truly living it? We don't know what will leave us next. Loved ones, health, work, which is exactly why acknowledging and appreciating what's still present is a quiet form of courage. It is awareness, not weakness. It is gratitude, not naivety. 3. Do less but go deeper. Depth, not volume, creates value. We live in an era where being busy has become a badge of honor. Jam-packed schedules, constant messages, endless multitasking. These are praised as proof of competence, of importance, of living life to the fullest. And yet, the more we do, the more drained we feel. The busier we are, the more disconnected we become from what truly matters. Meaning, we check off tasks, but none seem to touch the soul. And this is where a deceptively simple Stoic principle breaks through the madness. Do less, but go deeper. The Stoic doesn't try to do it all. They choose. They don't chase volume. They commit to substance. They understand time is a non-renewable resource, so each moment must be used with intention. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do what you are doing as if it were the last thing you do." That's not romantic advice on being present. It's a mental strategy to pour all your attention into one task in one moment, with the utmost seriousness and sincerity. Going deep into one thing sounds simple, but it's a rare skill in the age of distraction. We check emails while working. We scroll while eating. We drift off while someone speaks. Our minds are sliced into fragments, and the result isn't just lower quality work. It's the loss of presence, the very essence of a meaningful life. When we give full attention to even the smallest task, we train the mind to notice, and attention is the gateway to transformation. Washing dishes becomes a moment of meditation. A conversation becomes a bridge to repair. One focused hour of writing is an idea that can shift an entire career. But none of this happens unless we dare to reject distraction, say no to doing too much, and choose depth over density. Stoicism doesn't call us to slow down in a dreamy haze. It calls us to live deliberately, with strategy, not to be dragged by life, but to choose what deserves our own energy and voice. Seneca once wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Let that sentence sink in, and it might rearrange your entire approach to life. Doing less isn't laziness, it's a bold act. Cutting what doesn't matter, rejecting social expectations, confronting the emptiness we often hide beneath shallow tasks. It's how you restore inner order, by choosing one thing and going deep into it with full force. In doing so, you are not just finishing a task. You are training an essential Stoic faculty, the power to focus. Focus isn't innate. It's the product of repeated decisions. The decision to silence notifications, to say no to trivial plans, to do something meaningful even when no one is watching. And above all, the decision to live deeply, even when the world is moving at breakneck speed. No one can do it all, but you can do what matters most. And in the Stoic view, that's enough to build a life worth living. 4. Focus on what you can control. The only place you truly hold power. Few things torment the human mind more than the feeling of helplessness. Helpless when someone treats you unfairly, when plans fall apart, when the world shifts beyond your reach. But the more you try to control what isn't yours to control, the more exhausted, anxious, and ungrounded you become. Stoicism doesn't soothe that pain with cheerful optimism. It meets it head-on, offering a sharp and nearly supreme principle: clearly separate what you can control from what you cannot. We can't control the weather, but we can bring an umbrella. We can't control what others think, but we can control how we respond to being misunderstood. We can't control the markets, politics, or daily mishaps, but we do have full authority over our thoughts, actions, and attitude in the face of them. And this isn't just a beautiful theory to ponder. It's a practical skill, a core mental strategy to stay grounded in a chaotic world. Picture your mind as a fortress. Its gate is your thinking. If you leave it wide open to every external disturbance, you'll be under constant attack. But if you learn when to close it, filtering what deserves a response, you conserve enormous energy that could be used to actually improve your life. Stoicism teaches that when you're feeling anxious, angry, or frustrated, pause and ask, is my reaction aimed at something I can influence? Or am I trying to control the uncontrollable? The root of dissatisfaction doesn't lie in circumstances, but in expecting them to conform to our emotions. Yet the world doesn't bend to anyone's feelings. It runs on its own terms, and more often than not, our only true power lies in how we move through it. Rain won't stop because you're upset. People won't change just because you wish they would. Life won't soften simply because you think you deserve better. These expectations only deepen frustration. But if you shift your focus inward, where your choice, words, and mindset reside, you'll find strength you didn't know you had. Focusing on what you can control isn't passive surrender. It's intentional discipline. You still strive, Still give your best, but your expectations rest in your own effort, not in outcomes beyond your reach. You prepare for the presentation. You give your all to the project. You love sincerely, not to guarantee success or reciprocity, but because doing your part is the only thing you can truly promise. And that alone, in this unpredictable world, is enough to let you sleep in peace. There's a strange calm that emerges when you stop trying to manage what was never yours. Like when you stop raging at traffic and instead play your favorite song, savoring an unexpected pocket of stillness. Like when you stop arguing just to win and choose silence to preserve the relationship. Like when you remember that no one defines your worth but you. These small choices, repeated daily, shape a mindset that stands firm, not tossed around by the waves, but grounded like a rock in the sea. And perhaps that is the pinnacle of inner freedom, not getting everything you want, but remaining yourself even when you get nothing at all. 5. Be kind even when no one's watching. True virtue needs no applause. In a world where every good deed can be recorded, shared, and celebrated, kindness sometimes feels less like a genuine act and more like a performance. We grow accustomed to giving when there's an audience, helping when recognition is possible, and being kind when we know someone will remember. But Stoicism has no interest in that. This philosophy doesn't teach kindness for reputation, nor goodness out of fear of judgment. It simply teaches if you can do what's right, do it, even if no one sees. A Stoic knows that the value of an action lies not in external validation, but in inner consistency. You hold the door, not because you fear being seen as rude if you don't. You pick up something from the road, not for a thank you, but to prevent someone from tripping. You respond gently to anger, not to appear calm, but because you choose not to mirror that rage. These are the actions of a strong inner life, one that doesn't rely on praise to feel worthwhile. Stoicism sees kindness as inseparable from virtue. It isn't a conditional choice. It's part of living in alignment with reason, to act rightly, no matter the circumstances. When you show kindness without needing to be noticed, you're practicing a subtle form of the discipline of being free from the craving for recognition. And in that freedom, you stop chasing the approval of others and start reflecting more honestly within yourself. There's a paradox here. The kindest, most sincere actions are often the ones no one sees, no one knows about, and no one will ever mention. But those small, quiet gestures are what shape character. A gentle message that keeps someone from feeling alone. A moment of silence that spares another's pride. A private decision to forgive, even though they'll never find out. These acts may never shine on a stage, but they glow calmly inside. A steady light that nurtures peace, compassion, and strength. Kindness doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it demands real strength, because only when you no longer feel the need to win, to outshine, to be seen, can you create space within for softness. People often mistake kindness for passivity or fear, but Stoicism teaches this. The strong are those who could harm, but choose not to. The strong are those who can strike back, but choose forgiveness. The strong are those who know they are right, yet choose to listen first. When kindness becomes a part of your character, not a strategy for attention, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel lighter, calmer, freer. You're no longer burdened by the need to be acknowledged. You stop curating an image. You become less shaken when others fail to respond as you hoped. You do what's right because it's right, and you move forward without needing applause. That's true peace. In a world obsessed with outward display, where everything can become content, where every action risks comparison and scrutiny, Preserving a private space for kindness becomes a quiet but powerful act of rebellion. It declares, I choose to live by principle, not performance. I choose to be kind, even when no one sees, because this is who I've chosen to be. 6. Stop seeking approval. True freedom begins when you no longer need agreement. From a young age, we're taught that praise is a reward, that recognition means we're on the right path. A compliment from a parent, a good grade from a teacher, a pat on the back from a friend, all signs that we're okay. And so we grow up carrying this invisible measuring stick, letting others decide whether our actions are good enough, worthy enough. But here's a hard truth. The more we live to please others, the further we drift from ourselves. Stoicism is not just about inner strength. It's a declaration of mental independence. It asks a blunt question. If you know what's right and necessary, why let someone else's opinion define your worth? A Stoic chooses to act based on reason, on carefully examined principles, not in pursuit of approval or applause, because they know that approval is fragile. And if your life depends on it, you're building on sand. Few things are more vulnerable than an ego fueled by praise, because once the praise fades, and it will, you're left hollow. When your self-worth depends on likes, compliments, or agreement, you've handed the reins of your emotions to someone else. Worse yet, you begin reshaping yourself to match their preferences. Less of who you are, more of who they want you to be. You say what they want to hear, do what they expect, post what will earn their applause. And before you realize it, you're no longer living your own life, but the version others have suggested. Stoicism doesn't demand you abandon community or retreat from the world, but it does insist on this. Self-respect matters more than approval. You can be polite, kind, and open, but that doesn't mean you must please everyone. You can listen to others without making their opinions your compass. And most importantly, you can do good, even if no one sees it or claps for it. When you do that, you no longer need the world to cooperate for you to feel whole. You are whole because you're living in truth. Inner freedom doesn't come from being loved by the crowd. It comes from being able to look in the mirror and know you're living in line with your chosen values. And real respect from others doesn't come from always agreeing with them. It comes from standing firm in principle, being consistent in action, and staying unmoved by the random winds of opinion. You'll notice that truly admirable people rarely shout, rarely seek attention, but they carry a quiet gravity because they don't need anyone to validate their worth. Of course, this isn't easy. We're social creatures, and the desire for acceptance is natural. But what's natural isn't always what's right. And sometimes we must choose what's right, even if it means discomfort, suspicion, or criticism, because doing so builds a stronger foundation within. A place of safety that no one else controls. A place where you can finally rest in yourself, no longer scrambling for outside affirmation. Remember, recognition may or may not come, but self-respect is something you can build every single day by living true to what you believe is right. When you stop chasing approval, you don't become indifferent, you become strong. And from that strength, you can connect with others sincerely, with no masks, no performance, no pretending. Just you as you are. 7. Dare to challenge yourself every day. You'll never see yourself from above if you never climb the mountains. We often think of challenges as something big, daunting, reserved for dramatic moments, like losing a job, ending a relationship, going bankrupt, or facing illness. But in reality, everyday life is already a series of continuous challenges. You don't need a crisis to begin. You only need to choose the harder path over the easier one, the right path over the convenient, growth over compromise, and you've already begun training your inner strength. For the Stoic, challenge is not something to avoid. It is a sacred opportunity to sharpen courage, discipline, and clarity. They don't chase hardship for its own sake, but neither do they flee from it. They walk willingly toward discomfort because they understand no strength is ever forged in ease. There is a hard truth in life we often refuse to face. If you don't voluntarily leave your comfort zone, life will eventually push you out of it, suddenly and without kindness. So instead of waiting for adversity to strike, the Stoic chooses daily self-training. So when chaos arrives, they don't collapse. They stand, waking up 30 minutes earlier, reading a page each day, eating with intention, saying what needs to be said even when it risks rejection. These small acts accumulate, forming a person capable of facing anything. Challenging yourself isn't about outpacing others. It's about surpassing the person you were yesterday. You don't need to run a marathon. Just walk faster than you did before. You don't need to master a new language. Just learn one new word. You don't need to convince the world. Just speak one truth to someone you love. Repeated long enough, these actions become the foundation of a resilient self. And that's what Stoicism aims for. Becoming strong from within, bit by bit, every day. What matters most is not to confuse busyness with growth. Some people stay busy all day and never evolve. Others do one hard thing each morning and experience deep transformation. Because challenge isn't measured by how much you do. It's in how often you go against your own comfort. Saying no to procrastination, declining an invitation so you can follow through on a commitment, owning a mistake without blaming the circumstances, looking into the mirror and asking, am I living the values I claim to believe? Stoicism never promises that life gets easier when you challenge yourself. It only promises that you'll get stronger. And because of that, life feels lighter, not because it is, but because you're now able to carry more. And once you're used to doing the hard thing each day, life's surprises lose their power to shake you. When others lash out, you stay quiet. When others give up, you take one more step. When others hesitate, you've already acted. That's a strength no one can take from you, because it lives inside you. We can't control where life will take us, but we can prepare ourselves to be strong enough to go wherever it leads. And that doesn't happen in a single day, a week, or a weekend seminar. It happens daily, step by step. Every time you choose to face instead of avoid, to stretch instead of surrender, daring to challenge yourself every day is not a motivational slogan. It is a way of life, a method of sustainable self-mastery, a quiet, unwavering declaration that I will keep growing stronger, even if no one notices, even if no one claps. 8. Smile, even without a clear reason. A smile is a declaration that you still own yourself. There are days when we wake with a vague sense that life feels too heavy. Nothing catastrophic has happened, but nothing feels exciting either. The news is saturated with anxiety. Schedules are overflowing. People are tense, and sometimes all of that makes us forget one seemingly trivial, yet essential skill, the ability to smile, even when there's no obvious reason. To someone living by Stoic values, a smile isn't naivete, nor is it decoration. It's a deliberate act, a gentle but defiant response to the weight of the world, a quiet declaration. I won't let this world take away the lightness within me. Stoicism doesn't ask us to deny pain or pretend that everything is fine. It teaches us to face reality exactly as it is, and then to respond with dignity, autonomy, and inner freedom. Among all the ways we can do that, there's one simple tool we often forget: the smile. Not the forced kind, but the smile born from awareness. Awareness that we are still here, still choosing, still holding a sliver of freedom in how we respond. And sometimes we smile not because life is easy, but precisely because it isn't. And we choose not to let its weight bury us. To smile doesn't mean blind optimism. It signals a maturity that understands nothing is perfect. Everything is temporary. And part of wisdom is learning to go lightly with what we cannot control. You can make mistakes and still smile. You can fail and still smile. You can be misunderstood, rejected, placed in a ridiculous situation, and still choose to smile as a way to remind yourself, I still have control over myself. And sometimes that alone is enough to feel free amid life's unpredictability. Perhaps one of the clearest signs of inner strength is the refusal to take everything too seriously. These people may work with intensity, live with principle, and think deeply, yet still maintain a sense of humor and find joy in the little things. They don't let the heaviness of the world strip them of the ability to notice absurdity, not with anger, but with a light smile. They understand when you smile, you're healing your mood from the grip of circumstance. And in an age where everything seems designed to provoke, a smile becomes an act of quiet power. In Stoic culture, the smile is also a form of humility. It's what happens when you accept that you don't know everything, can't control everything, and that sometimes things simply won't go your way. Instead of lashing out when the bus is late, you smile and use that time to think. Instead of snapping at someone behaving irrationally, you smile and realize you don't need to meet them at that frequency. Instead of drowning in bitterness when plans fall apart, you smile, recalibrate, and carry on. Smiling doesn't solve problems, but it stops them from consuming you. Then something interesting happens. When you smile, you give others a breath of relief. You become a calm point in the middle of collective tension. People who can still smile during hard times often inspire, not because they're perfect, but because they protect a bright part of themselves, even as life tries to dim it. Smiling, in the Stoic sense, isn't spontaneous. It's a reflection of wisdom and self-mastery. It doesn't require ideal circumstances. It only needs one moment where you look at the world, look at yourself, and decide, I don't need to make this heavier than it is. I just need to carry on and keep my spirit a little lighter. And sometimes that small shift is the only difference between a day that consumes you and a day where you remain yourself, still free, still living on your terms. 9. Reflect. Don't condemn. Learn from mistakes. Don't live in them. We live in an era where every flaw is easily magnified. Every crack in our character is dissected and smudged. Worse still, the harshest judgments often don't come from others. They come from within. That voice in your head keeps repeating, why are you like this? You always mess things up. You're never enough. And sadly, we start to believe it. We think it's truth, that the more we punish ourselves, the more we grow. But that's entirely wrong. Stoicism doesn't teach self-judgment. It teaches reflection, with clarity, with responsibility, but without self-destruction. Reflection is the act of pausing to look back, not to punish, but to understand, not to conclude, but to observe. When you reflect, you draw lessons from your behavior instead of branding it onto your identity. For example, you say, I wasn't as calm as I could have been today, instead of, I'm a failure with a temper. That's the critical difference between self-discipline and self-sabotage. Stoicism reminds us that humans are not perfect, and the point is not to avoid mistakes, but not to get stuck in them. We must learn to observe ourselves like a good friend, honest but never cruel, truthful but never cold. Each day, we face thousands of choices. Sometimes we're clear-minded. Sometimes we're exhausted. Sometimes we respond well. Sometimes we fall short. That's being human. But if every misstep becomes a reason to shame yourself, to slap on labels and eternalize failure, you lock yourself into a loop of insecurity and paralysis. On the other hand, if you take a few minutes daily to reflect, by writing down your thoughts, or simply sitting in stillness and asking, what did I handle well today? What did I learn from what happened? What do I want to improve tomorrow? Then you are turning experience into growth, not into a verdict against yourself. Reflection is both humble and courageous. It requires you to face truth head-on, while holding compassion for yourself. It means saying, I got this wrong, without piling on an inner monologue of, I'm worthless. The Stoic doesn't train for numbness, but to build a stable inner core, because you can't stand back up strong if you're busy beating yourself down every time you fall. The world is harsh enough. You don't need to be your own worst enemy. Instead, be your own teacher, your own ally, your most reliable companion. Use each day as a chance to write the next better version. Not because you're broken and need fixing, but because you're evolving into a deeper, steadier, more conscious mind. True reflection doesn't require perfection. It only asks for honesty and the willingness to keep moving forward, one steady step at a time. One of the simplest, yet most powerful habits is writing a few lines each night. No need to be poetic or elaborate. Just a few sentences. How did I live today? What do I regret? What am I grateful for? What do I want to change tomorrow? This habit won't make you perfect, but it will keep you from drifting through life without an inner record. It's how you avoid repeating the same blind mistakes. It's how you retain the quiet wisdom your day has already taught you. And one day, you'll realize the calm you've been searching for doesn't come from avoiding mistakes or never falling. It comes from having practiced reflection long enough to know every misstep is a deeper insight, every correction a step closer to true freedom. And in that process, what you need isn't a whip, but a mirror that's honest but doesn't hurt you, a space where you can look, adjust, and move forward, steadier than you were yesterday. 10. Amor Fati. Love fade as it is. You begin to truly live when you stop resisting. We're often taught how to accept reality, but rarely are we shown how to love our fate, especially when it doesn't unfold the way we hoped. That's when the questions arise. Why me? Why now? Why couldn't it have been different? But if you pause long enough, you'll see these questions contain no freedom, only resistance. And it's that resistance, not the circumstance, that wears us down. To the Stoic, Amor Fati is not a feel-good slogan. It is a vow, a way of living, a bold decision to love your fate, not just accept it, but embrace it with your whole being. This doesn't mean pain is good, or that we should pretend to enjoy what hurts. It means that when something happens, good or bad, you recognize it as part of the journey, as something meant to teach, to challenge, to push you in ways comfort never could. Loving fate doesn't demand constant cheerfulness. It only asks that you stop fighting what cannot be changed. When you lose an opportunity, Amor Fati points you toward what that opportunity made you overlook. When someone leaves your life, it whispers that their absence creates room for transformation within. When everything falls apart, Amor Fati doesn't say, it's fine. It says, this collapse will teach you to rebuild on stronger ground. This philosophy isn't for those who want an easy life. It's for those who want an unshakable mind. Practicing Amor Fati means not sitting around hoping life treats you gently. It means standing up and meeting each turn of fate as inevitable, drawing from what others call misfortune, or unfairness a chance to sharpen character, deepen resilience, and know yourself more truly than ever before. Amor Fati teaches us to stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "Now that it has happened, how can I use it to grow stronger?" That shift is where real power begins, not by faking joy through pain, but by pulling meaning from suffering, ensuring nothing you endure goes to waste, that all of it can be transformed if you're brave enough to see it not as a curse, but as training ground. Life doesn't follow the logic of our preferences. It has its own rhythm, its own feels, and sometimes it brings hardship with no explanation. But fairness isn't something we can demand from the world. Fairness is how we choose to respond to what the world brings. Those who live by Amor Fati don't say, "I enjoy this pain, but I accept that this is part of what I need to become stronger." And in that mindset, you're no longer paralyzed by life. You become a companion to fate, not its victim. We can't control everything, but we can always choose how to move through the uncertain. Amor Fati is the compass that steadies you when the map suddenly changes. It won't lead you to an easier path, but it will make you steady enough to walk in the path. And sometimes, that's exactly what we need. Not smoother roads, but stronger legs to walk them. When you look back at the upheavals in your life, the collapses, the breakups, the closed doors, ask yourself, without them, would you be who you are today? Would you have learned calm, gratitude, self-restraint, or the strength to rise again? If the answer is no, then you've seen exactly what Amor Fati reveals. What happened didn't happen against you. It happened to forge you. Stoicism isn't a philosophy meant to sit on a shelf or be debated in academic circles. It's a way of life, practical, clear, and applicable to every small decision we make from the moment we wake up. I used to be someone easily swayed by others' expectations, ruled by emotion, haunted by the past, and anxious about the future. But since I began applying Stoic principles, one at a time, I've stopped trying to control the world out there and started learning how to master the world within. I no longer panic when the unexpected hits, because I know life doesn't need to be easy. I just need to be strong enough to face it. I write a few lines each night, not to impress anyone, but to have an honest conversation with myself. I wake up a little earlier, not to prove anything, but to make time for what matters, even if no one sees it. I've learned to stay silent when needed, to let go when it's time, and to be kind, even when I'm tired inside. The most beautiful thing Stoicism has taught me isn't how to live a perfect life, but how to walk through an imperfect one with clarity, self-control, and deep gratitude for the chance to keep practicing every single day. Happiness doesn't come from getting everything to go your way. It comes from having the strength to stay centered when things don't. Stoicism doesn't pull you away from reality. It brings you back to a stronger, wiser version of yourself. One day, one choice, one response at a time. If this video resonates with you, consider hitting like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you won't miss future content that helps you strengthen your inner life, master your emotions, and live with greater depth in a chaotic world. And if you truly want to walk further on this path, drop a comment below. Which Stoic principle in this video spoke to you the most? I'll read every word carefully, because this journey, we're on it together. See you in the next video.